Hello, everyone. Welcome to an awesome day of FileMaker training. I'm Richard Carlson, creator of FMtrain.tv, where every day, no matter where we're at, on what planet we're on, it's an awesome day to learn about the Claris FileMaker platform. And so we have some really questionable looking individuals hanging out with us here. We're at the Full Access Conference, and this is a regional conference. For those of you wondering about such thing, this is not like DevCon, although I would call it like a baby DevCon, but very baby. I don't know, 50, 60, 70 people, however many people are here, like a good group. We did not do pause on air this year, so this is the event that we got to go to. For those of you wondering why I'm not in Australia and not visiting New Zealand and not in Africa on the top of an elephant doing a live stream, is because I try to do regional events kind of where I can get to them in my car, more or less. And so today's very upcoming broadcast schedule today, live from Full Access here in California. We're at it's a Jesuit Retreat Center. Dennis is here. He's got some really cool stuff. This is unscheduled for all of you. It was scheduled for Friday, then it got canceled. Then we're going to do it in another couple of weeks. But Dennis says he's going to be pretty much ready to go. And this is a great day to learn about a mobile application that's mostly FileMaker Go. We'll step onto that momentarily. So, Margaret, are you still here? You're still here, but you can't really talk. And Dennis, is Dennis here? Can he talk? Can you hear me? Dennis is there. See if he presses the button. We'll check to see if I can hear Dennis. And then we're going to work on sharing his screen as well. Say hi, Dennis.
Hello, Richard.
How are you, sir?
I'm hot and sweaty from running around this place all morning and last night.
Yeah, Dennis is one of the volunteers here helping to make sure this event goes off well. And so he's pretty close to me here, along down the other way here. So, Dennis, you created a mobile application for this conference, right?
I did.
And you built it in Pro, and most people use it in Go.
There are some people using it in Go. There are some people using it in WebDirect on their Android devices and WebDirect on their iPads or WebDirect on their computers. In Go, they can be on an iPad or on an iPhone.
So if they're using WebDirect, then they're parking it on a FileMaker server, just to be clear about that.
We're running a FileMaker server in the Amazon cloud. John Howell put that together many months ago. There's actually two databases, and my app is one of them. The app that Ron Cates and Patrick Reagan built is the one that was used for registration and the creation of their website.
Okay.
And a few months after that was built, I came aboard. John Howell was looking for a volunteer to make a map of this property.
Okay.
And foolish me, I thought, well, we'll make a map.
How hard could that possibly be, right?
Well, in Adobe Illustrator, it would have been effortless for me. But I realized that they don't really want a map that they can put in their pocket. What they wanted was something that could be used in FileMaker Go because of the apps that Claris has distributed in the past for DevCon and for Engage. Okay. So I went about the process of making an interactive map. And that started with an aerial view from Google Maps of the property, which I took into Photoshop and dimmed it so that the background would let me show the buildings in higher resolution. And then I traced the buildings in Illustrator. I can show it to you if I go to the map. The map that you're looking at started as a Photoshop image that was taken from Google Maps.
Okay.
And you can see how the background was dimmed. And then I drew the outlines of the buildings, the contours of the buildings. And the next step was to get into Photoshop and get rid of the foliage because the foliage was blocking the view of some of the buildings. And then each of these colored buttons that you see indicates something that we're using for the conference. So for example, if I click on number 2, which is the Loyola Hall, it shows you the sessions that are happening at the Loyola Hall. And if I click on a blue one, which is one of the residential buildings, a yellow one, we'll take Loyola. This is St. Joseph's Hall, gives you the room numbers that are at that location. And when I'm in Denver, so I took the GPS locations off Google Maps for the rooftops of all of those buildings. But as you know, the rooftops are only useful to one person, and that's Santa Claus, because Santa Claus has to land on the roof with his reindeer and his sleigh. We need to know where the entrances are. So it wasn't until my arrival yesterday that I could actually walk the property and use the location function that's in FileMaker Go to gather the exact GPS locations of each of these buildings.
Okay, so I have a quick question. If you back out of this just real quick, because we jumped straight into this, can you just to frame this for everyone? What are we looking at? This is an FMP12 file.
This is an FMP12 file. That's right.
And it's running on your server. This one's running on your server right
It's
now, right?
running on the server, and
Okay.
it inherits its data every 5 minutes from the website database.
So it's doing an import, some sort of
It's
scripted.
doing, yes, and the way that it's doing the import, Richard, is that on a similar schedule, the website database, which we call EMS for Event Management System, it's just a nickname,
Okay.
it's exporting certain records into a merge file that's in the documents folder on the server. And this database, which is adjacent on the same server, then imports those merge files into certain specific tables for the attendees, the people who were the presenters, the sessions, and the favorites that people designate.
So you have multiple exports from the EMS system. And
Multiple meaning every 5 minutes it creates another export and it just overwrites itself in that documents folder.
But you see, they had a lot of little things you're tracking. So is it one data is it a tab delimited file or comma delimited?
No, it's a merge file. Do you know what a merge file is?
Yeah, MER. And then, but is only one file it creates?
There's 4 merge files.
There we go. That's what I'm asking. Okay,
right. So one is for the favorites, one is for the attendees, one is for the sessions, and the schedule is the fourth one.
Now you don't have to do the import, but that's just you having fresh data.
Yes, we want to have fresh data because as people are making changes on the website, they're either registering or they're choosing their favorites, or they're correcting the spelling of their name or something like that. It was doing every 10 minutes until about 2 weeks ago, and then we made it more frequent because of the conference.
Okay, great. So as a reminder for everyone, so FileMaker server is involved here. And this is this for what you're saying right here is a single FMP app. And I'm summarizing what you just said. And it can do an import. You can run a scripted import on FileMaker server, but FileMaker server can only, because of the sandboxing and security issues. So one app can't really mess with another app. FileMaker server can only interact with its documents directory and the temp directory as well. And you chose document.
Exactly. And I'm glad you asked me that because we tried in the beginning to import directly from one database to another. And of course, we found that you can't do that.
Yeah.
But you can do an export. And the merge files are tiny. And the number of records was also very small. So the actual whole sequence of export followed by import probably took 30 seconds.
Oh, yeah, it's pretty quick. Okay, excellent. In fact, I saw a flash while you were waving the hands at the beginning of this. I saw the screen flash, and it probably ran an update.
And that's a good point because John Howell and I had disagreements throughout this development process about how things are to be done. What he insisted on doing in the very beginning was to delete the whole table and then refresh it with new data. And I said, I don't think that's going to be a good idea. And then a few weeks later, I was proven right. Because if you're in WebDirect at the time that all those records get deleted and you happen to be viewing a list of things, all of a sudden it all goes away. But if you're doing an import with an update, it works fine. You don't see that.
Okay, so that's a lessons learned. So once again, if you're exposing your data, exposing it properly, exposing your data, flasher, exposing your data to your customers. You want to do it in a smooth way where you have less screen flickering, screen shaking, shock to the customers.
Right. You just saw it happen again right there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Another thing I should mention about the map is that unlike a conference center or a hotel, there are 3 or 4 buildings here that people are not allowed to go to. So you see these little red off-limits symbols. And when you click on one of those, it tells you that that's off-limits to the conference. That's where the priests have their residences, and we're not allowed to go there. But all the others, even the dining room, it'll tell you that it's the dining room.
Okay.
And a little drawing to indicate what the building actually looks like. I think after an hour or so, people are going to learn their way around.
Sure, absolutely. So this started off as a mapping app that was in your mind static, and then of course you discover customer expectations. We've never heard of those before, and it became a dynamic map that would do things for you.
Right. So, for instance, John said, make a button for show all, make a button for only the sessions, make a button for the lodging. And these 3 views are also available on the home screen. So Then Dean Sur, who's been responsible for the AV, said that he wanted to have some virtual paddles because he didn't want to carry around one of the thumbs up, thumbs down paddles. So we made these virtual paddles that people can use in the app if, let's say, they wanted to say to the presenter that they've got a question. And those things appear on the home screen that you're looking at now.
Okay.
And if you were looking at the session detail, actually made those buttons time sensitive. So they're hidden from view until the session is actually on the schedule at that time of day.
Cool.
There's a link at the top that goes to our website and an exit button. One thing I should also mention about the design of this was I really didn't want to make 25 different layouts for all the different sizes of iPhones. So when you use our menu, let's say if I wanted to bring up the meeting rooms, they're all card windows that are this exact shape and size. I happen to be a user of an iPhone 13 mini. I love the small size, and I've never gotten the newer one, but it's 375 points wide. And this thing you're looking at is going to appear regardless of what phone you have. It'll appear centered in your screen. Because I'm logged in with full access right now, I can open my status toolbar and I can go to the home screen for phones and go back into browse mode. And if I click on the map, the screen will automatically adjust its size. So it's really the same map that you saw before, but rotated 90 degrees. The legend that you see is just informative. And it comes from the JRCs giving us these numbers that correlate to their buildings. And the same menu appears here. If I choose the sessions, for instance, it's going to prompt me because I'm in full access, whether I want to look at things in table view or look at them the way the users will. So I'm clicking the no button because I don't want to go to a table view. But this gives me a chronological view of all the sessions. And then John Howell came up with the idea of different colors for the favorites. People go to the website to indicate what sessions they want to attend. And if I scroll way down to, well, actually, I'm not in my favorites right now, but I can do that in a moment. The red ones, the bright red ones, are the ones you've chosen to attend. The blue hearts tell you that you're a presenter. So when that comes up, you better well show up if you're a presenter.
Yeah, if you're a presenter, yeah, absolutely.
Right? And the gray ones are supposed to indicate that you are making a change to that in the app. The data API hasn't been adjusted properly, so we're telling people to go to the website to make any of the changes they want for their favorites. So if I close this and I go to the favorites button in the menu, the first thing it's going to ask me to do is to put in my email address. We're using email addresses to do a lookup of their contact ID. Nobody will know their contact ID. And then it will import the favorites and it'll show them to me in chronological order with those colored buttons that I was just describing. There it is. So the blue icons, the blue hearts, mean that I'm presenting full access. There's an app for that right now, 1:00 p.m. So here I am. I didn't miss being here. And the red ones are my other favorites. And each of these schedule blocks of time is called a time slot. So if I have two things for the same time slot, I'm scrolling down to the end of the day on Wednesday. You see this little warning icon at 7:30 p.m., which is a reminder to me that I've chosen two things for the same time slot. I used to do that for DevCon when I wasn't sure until I got there. You know, maybe I ran into Richard Carlton in the lobby and he said to me, here's one you really should attend. I could make my decision at the last minute because we weren't like reserving a space in a movie theater. So that's just a little extra thing that we put in to guide people. And then if you click on any one of these sessions, like let's say we'll take red flags during project discovery, it opens up detail. And in the detail, there's a slide control. You can see it with the 4 dots at the bottom. So the first panel tells us the short description and the long description. If we go to the notes, people can write notes, and because it's on their device, those notes are in their own app. If they're in WebDirect, what will show up instead is a drop-down list of 15 different popular cloud storage sites, like iCloud or Google Docs or Evernote, places where they could keep their own notes. If they go to the third panel, That's relatively new, and that's where we're doing ratings. And this is a direct connection to the other database
Mm.
using a web viewer where you can give ratings and write your comments. And down at the bottom, there's a submit button. And then the last panel has 6 photographs. So if you want to take a picture of something with your phone, um, maybe the person sitting next to you, hopefully not um, an inappropriate photo.
There we go. You save for work would be always appreciated.
Right? And these are stored in your app so that you're taking home as many of 6 photographs for each of your sessions. If I click the blue button, it takes me back to the list. If I click the red X button, it'll close the card window. And if I click the green website button, it'll take me over to the website.
Yeah. So what we're going to do for all of you, you all are going to have access to this file. You're going to get a copy of this file. It's free. It'll be unlocked. I think, Dennis, you said you're working towards what, end of the week on that, thereabouts?
Yes, I've already done, I think, about 80% of it. I'll show you what it looks like when it's opened up. I decided to pretend that it's a college varsity reunion. So all the data that's in it is fake. I used ChatGPT to give me a list of 60 fictitious sessions with.
Okay.
It's amazing how it gave me an Excel file that I could actually just import, which was
Nice.
a lot better than trying to invent 50 fictitious sessions. But what I was in the process of doing was changing all the names so that they're fake names. I have a database I keep in my server at home. It has just 500 names, addresses, phone numbers that are all fictitious. But I haven't gone about the rest of the procedure, and I'm trying to make it so that anybody could use this. They can have all the scripts, they can have all the field definitions, they can have the value lists, they can have whatever they want to do to implement this for a conference, a reunion, any event that might have lots of people attending with some presented sessions for an audience.
Yeah, so Dennis is the author. It'll be a free sample file. We're calling it Conference2Go, trademark, patent pending, and all that sort of stuff. But no, it's a free sample file that you can play with, and they're removing the full access information because we don't really need that. So, Mark, I know you don't have a microphone there, but you have any questions from anyone here on YouTube or Discord?
I sort of have a microphone. It's a very crappy one, so people are gonna be like, "Wow, Margaret, you sound terrible." I actually have a question from earlier. You mentioned merge files, and Richard said, "Oh yeah, I know what that is." Well, I personally have no idea what a merge file is. So, what is a merge file?
A merge file is one of the export options, and likewise import options. And a merge file is very similar to a CSV file. It's also similar to an Excel file in that it has column names that relate to FileMaker field names. But it is, I don't remember, frankly, if it's comma or tab delimited, but I use it all the time because I don't have to worry about things that CSV files do when there's a comma within the field. Somebody will put Dover, comma, Delaware, and what you really want to do is separate it into separate fields. And the merge file is just very easy to work with. I'm surprised more people don't know what it is.
Now, is that the one with like a 250 character limit on each field cell, or is that a different
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay, because one of those I ran into had you couldn't put like a whole book in there, right? Like 5 pages of text. It had like a whatever 250 characters or something like that, which is not a lot, but for everything we're doing, it's plenty, right?
One of the things I discovered in recent weeks is a feature in the new FileMaker 2025, the insert text script step, which used to be limited to a certain number of characters, is now like 15 million or something like that. It's enormously,
really?
yeah.
That came up with the AI
That was a
conversation?
specific AI addition because they wanted to be able to insert like massive prompts or deal with people having comment history, conversation history between them and the AI. So they had to drastically increase the character limit for that as a result.
That's funny because a lot of things that have been done with FileMaker has been with the engineering teams there has been improvements to support what they want to do with AI. So, I hear these stories kind of secondhand, and they're in a meeting and someone says, we're going to do blah, 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 AI, blah, 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 blah. And the engineers are going, well, to make that work, we're going to have to fix this execute SQL stuff in it. There's some improvements to that, improvements into the Star Trek transporter. Some of you heard us talk about that. That's the XML2 technology. And then obviously insert text. There's a bunch of things that Claris has to do to support AI so the AI can talk to FileMaker, because under the hood, maybe it hasn't been fully fleshed all the way out.
One of the other things I discovered in doing the GPS for the various buildings here is that the location function in FileMaker Pro only works in iOS. So how do you as a developer work with the location function when you're trying to build an app to use the location function? And I found that I could do a workaround in in a web viewer that made it possible. But the funny thing is, if you go to the help file for the location function, it doesn't really tell you about an error. And if you run the location function in FileMaker Pro in your script debugger, it doesn't give you an error. So Claris needs to figure out a way to make it possible for developers to develop the location function for iOS devices.
How did you even find the error? Would you just like...
Well, funny that you should ask, because when I was in Denver at home, I was able to take the pinpoint GPS location of the rooftop. And then if I click the map button in my phone, it would show me how to walk there from Denver, Colorado, which Lewis and Clark did 180 years ago. But I would show up next June if I started walking. Yeah. The script step invokes the mapping option that somebody has chosen for their device. So if they chose Google Maps, if they choose Apple Maps, if they choose Waze, whatever their favorite mapping thing is will be invoked by that script step, and it will draw the map from wherever they're standing. So for instance, sitting right here, if I was to click on the walking directions button to figure out where my room is, it would guide me right back to my room because I'm actually here. But I didn't know that till we arrived yesterday.
Okay, that's very great. Real quick, is that so you and I don't know if you mentioned this, I was talking to John briefly, but the get, there's a get function that gets your GPS information. A get function, is that how you get the GPS? You can.
I was just telling Margaret about that. That's the location function.
Yes.
Which is only working in Go.
Correct.
In Pro, if you try to run the location function, it doesn't even report an error.
Yes.
So you have to have a way of doing the development work for it, which I figured out you can do with a web viewer.
Yeah. Okay. So real quick, so the backstory on that, and this goes back to our training tool for FileMaker Go. There's a get location, and then there's another variation of that get function that's very similar. And you'll see two of them in there if you're doing development. Once again, this sample file, we're going to give it to you. You're going to be able to have that. It's not a problem. But there's the get location function. There was an initial one that Claris did, and it makes a call through the Apple software, and the Apple software is talking to the chips on the mobile device to get its location or get whatever it needs. And they brought up a more advanced one that would bring your altitude into effect. So,
oh, yes,
yeah,
that's right. The location function can be set to do other things besides latitude, longitude. For example, in some of the buildings here, the altitude of the ground floor and the second floor are really the same. It's only if the entrance was on the opposite side of the building that we want people to walk to that entrance for the third floor rather than the entrance for the ground floor.
Perfect. Yeah. So then just keep in mind that they for backwards compatibility, they supported the original get location or get GPS coord. So there's two functions. They're very similar, almost identical, but one delivers almost like a value list of additional data, which includes altitude and other things like that. So if you're playing with this, you haven't played with it before, get a mobile device. If you want the best, most accurate data, get one with cellular on it, although it still works with the Wi-Fi only devices. And just keep in mind, there's two scripts you can, or script steps, get functions you can call that'll get you the GPS coordinates over and above the WebDirect stuff you're doing. So
this one doesn't have the word get, it's just the word location.
Okay.
And the third parameter that it gives you back, in addition to latitude, longitude, is the number of seconds that it takes for it to the precision accuracy of how
Yes,
long
yeah.
does it take to gather.
How long do you want it to wait to give you the data
Right.
before it kind of just wings it? So the longer it sits, I think the more accurate it gets. Once again, this goes back, to be clear, when Go came out, which was what, 2010 or something like that, 2011. And so it's been refined over the years, and obviously these devices have gotten better. So maybe rules of the road and problems that we used to have are gone. But just keep in mind, there's at least two ways built into the FileMaker Go to get that data, and then using a web viewer to get it on other, like Pro on Mac and Windows and things, is where you have to play with that. So
I'm storing up to 6 decimal places.
wow, okay, that's quite.
Well, it's important when the buildings are nearby one another.
Oh yeah, that accuracy for that, right? Okay, cool. Margaret, do we have any questions thus far? Let's see, because I'm watching Discord myself.
I think, was it you earlier who mentioned the having to figure out a custom function for middle names?
Oh, I mentioned that a little while ago. Apparently, a lot of people, when they registered for the conference, let me reopen. Well, I don't need to have the database open for this. When they registered for the conference, they filled in their first name, their middle name, and their last name. Some people, in this case, Alan Poole, his first name is L period. So anytime I was doing anything that had to do with name badges, you want the person's first name to be on the badge. Well, L is not when anybody calls him. They call him Alan. So I had to write a custom function that detected if the first name was less than 2 characters, it would just use the middle name.
Yeah, the project starts off very simple, and then everyone has their custom use cases of how it's going to interact.
Right.
So
Ron Cates goes by the name Ron Glenn Cates. So in that case, I had to decide, do you use Glenn as your published middle name, or is it good enough for people to call you Ron?
okay, so David Angel has a question here. So first I'm going to say, so we're going to go back to this initial conversation for those of you who missed this. So if we go back on his screen here, and he's going to show his app, and he's running this right now. We're seeing this in Pro. And so this is an FMP12 file. This is the file minus the artwork. The artwork will be changed. This is the file that's running on the FileMaker server. It's going out, it's being hosted to many people, including FileMaker Go users and WebDirect users. It gets every 5 minutes, it does is it a SASE script or something that it runs on the server? It runs a script to do an import from the server.
There is a scheduled server script.
Yes.
That is doing 2 things. First, it tells the registration database to do its export.
Yeah.
And a few seconds after that, it tells this database to do the import. And the round trip is about 30 seconds.
Yeah. So this is a schedule. We talked about this in our server training. For those of you, if you have questions about this, please ask, because once again, it's a good topic. I was the first person to present on this back at DevCon in 2011, and it barely worked at that time. I mean, like barely, like it was breathe and the FileMaker server fall over. So no, it was way too spicy of software for a DevCon presentation. Yeah, no. But what it does is you run a set of schedule, and it can run a script for you in a file. You have to get told that file has to be on the FileMaker server. You have to pass a credential that you can give it, and it will open it up and run the script for you. And so they have set that up every 5 minutes to do an export in one file, and then do the import in this file. This is the file here, the conference, the public facing file. We're not going to give people the event registration file. That's a separate conversation, and Dennis didn't really build that. But this file here receives the data, and it's the front facing piece for people who are at the conference. So the question is, why run an import? David Angel, a fairly sharp guy, and is one of our class clowns, but it's a legit question. Why import? What else could you have used? I'm going to say this out loud. What else could you have used besides import? Because there's 2 FMP12 files on the FileMaker server, and they're really, unless you relationally connect them, which I don't think these are, if they're not relationally connected, then they really can't talk to each other. They're kind of prevented. So he's doing a dump out of one, and then he's slurping up the dumpage import into the other one, because the 2 files weren't connected. It's 2 different groups of people. I could guess that they didn't want to intrude upon each other's stuff, probably. Politics of workplace, right? Yes.
Politics is the answer.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have expected you to ask me that, but I will tell you that the answer is I wasn't brought into this project for the conference until way after they built the database for the website.
Yeah.
And frankly, until about a week ago, all the team attention has been on the website. And I kept saying to them in our weekly Zoom meetings, you guys need to pay attention to the app that people are going to be using when they're on site. But to directly answer your question, if I were doing it over again, if I could wind the clock back to March or April when they started building that database, we would have built this thing right into that database. There would have been just one database.
Yeah,
The only reason we have two is because the politics didn't allow me to have access to what was in that website. And frankly, I'm very impressed with what Ron has done with WordPress to make that website that everybody has been so complimentary about it. But
Yes.
if I had been on the team in the very beginning, we would have collaborated in a way that I could have said, let me build the layouts that are needed for the mobile app. And you wouldn't have to have two databases where you're exporting and importing.
Yeah, and but to be honest with you, and I've worked a lot of years in Dennis, not as long as you have, but in the community. But damn, it's not uncommon to have the sales department need data from the engineering department, and the engineering department is like, "Hey, kiss our ass. We're not helping you. Your sales." And they have separate systems. So doing a dump out of export out of one and an import in another, whether it's SQL or FileMaker, it doesn't matter. It's all, in this case, it's all FileMaker. It's a good way to get around the barriers between the organizations and their FMP12 files, right? So
there are more than just me who have full access to the Conference2Go database. John Howell is a full access user. Ron Cates is a full access user. We're sharing that responsibility. But even as I sit here today, I do not have permission to upload anything to FileMaker server. John Howell has exclusive control over that. It became a little bit of a contest between us and a struggle. When I built the Jeopardy database and he wanted me to upload that to him, I said, oh no, I'm not uploading that to you because I want the questions and answers to be a secret until Thursday. And I know you well enough. If you get into it, you're going to be able to know all the questions and answers. So it's running off my server in Las Vegas.
Oh man, you two are characters, but in the same
we
room.
we were like a clash of the Titans on this, and because I'm known in the community with the avatar of Bullwinkle the Moose, who was Mr. Know-It-All on television years ago, and John is also trying to be Mr. Know-It-All, and you can't have two people with the same avatar.
Yeah, no, that's a problem. Yeah. So once again, it's a good example, and I think John's a good-hearted guy, and he's working his ass off. This conference come off really well. So Dennis is working to make sure that because the full access stuff is trademarked for these guys. So it's going to be so the version you're going to see is nearly identical to this. It says something about varsity party, something beer drinking, booze fest, whatever it is. Dennis is happy with that. Oh, someone says varsity party. I start thinking of Animal House, and
everything's replaceable in that edition. If they want to go on Google to start with an aerial view like I did, fine. The map that I took of the Tufts University campus I thought was appropriate, but I don't know what all the buildings are.
Okay.
I haven't been there since I graduated 50 years ago.
Oh, wow. Okay, yeah. So once again, and people say, well, why is he on the show? Is it because he built something that's interesting and he gives us a free sample file so all of you can take it apart? If these people want a copy of this, Dennis, I know that we're going to try to get it and post it, but you said by end of the week thereabouts.
Yeah, I'm going to have it for you by Friday.
Okay.
We finish our work here on Thursday, and I've got a little bit of off hours time in between sessions that I can use to finish the work that I started on that. Okay. I want to run it through a DDR to make sure there's no script errors, but really it's going to be totally unlocked. So if somebody doesn't like one of the scripts, they can fix it themselves.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. That's the whole point. Learn from it, steal some stuff out of it. It's what we do with Starting Point. Grand theft, to steal the stuff why build a car when you can just steal one? So, yeah.
I'm a user of Starting Point for one of the other sessions I'm doing here at the conference.
Well, we're going to run and hide when you start critiquing that. So, so we did the import, David Angel. We asked the import export because two different groups control the FMP12 file, and because iOS could be disconnect. Yeah. So here's the deal. So okay. Let me back up and ask the question: can they install this the official version of this event file on their? Can they install it locally, or does it only access on the server?
What they're doing locally is downloading a MirrorSync launcher. So I can't promise that in the version that we give people unlocked that MirrorSync will be involved in that. Jesse Barnum, who you're going to talk to sometime this week, he contributed the MirrorSync plugin technology. So when people begin using this, what they're downloading is the MirrorSync launcher. And when they run that, it brings into their device the most current version of the database.
We did that show, Dish did that show, and we talked to how he improved the performance and speed of that. So
it's terrific. I was a witness to the installation. Mike Ross, who has used it professionally in his career, was advocating that, yes, we use it. It all came about because of the favorites. When people have the favorites chosen on the website and we're importing that data periodically, they wanted something to be more dynamic. And it turned out that not only did MirrorSync solve the problem of importing each person's personal favorites into the local copy of FileMaker on their device, it also synchronized all the other data that we weren't concerned with in the past, the attendees and the sessions and so on. So Jesse did a Zoom session with us, and he did the whole configuration while we were observing in Zoom. And that's where I learned how it's working and what it's about. Frequently, there was a need for me to ask him a technical question. There was a message that popped up on the screen that I wanted to remove and replace with something that just simply said, your data has been synced.
So we have actually two different kind of syncs going on. And that's a loose term. We have the registration system on the front end with WordPress. We're going to work to bring those people to us on the live stream so we can all learn about WordPress and how to make that go. And then right there, you can see Discord. If you're in a Discord conversation, we had 2 days of MirrorSync with Jesse Barnum, and we took it apart and we worked on that. And so we have the export and import between, say this, the database that was doing registration and our main full access to Go file. And then, but that full access to the Go file is also using MirrorSync and all the other people running around locally so it's like two swirling syncs of, well, that's a pretty integrated a lot of companies could use something like that, right? Because that's pretty great. So you guys are, as we say in the business, we're eating our own dog food. So you don't see a bunch of Salesforce people here. We're going to use Salesforce to solve a FileMaker problem. No, normally people use FileMaker to solve a Salesforce problem or an Oracle problem or something like that. It's so funny. Good one, Dennis. Really great job on that.
Thank you.
I saw someone wanted to see the layout where you did the map and want to see the layout, actual layout mode of it, what that looked like.
Okay.
What have you done?
I'm sharing my main screen.
Because you have really two sets of layouts. You have like
it's good that you mentioned that. I didn't want to build 25 layouts.
Yeah.
And because as a developer that when you make a change on one and you think, I got to make that change on the others to do the same thing. And, maybe something happens, like you get a phone call, interrupts you, or
that's how bugs are created.
Nature break and come back to your desk and you forgot where you left off. So I wanted to just focus on one layout for each thing. And that was successful. For instance, if I show you the layout that comes up in a card window for the, let's say the meeting rooms, this one layout is used for whether it's meeting rooms, lodging, everything. I can't show it to you while it's in a card window. I can't go into layout mode, but there's like dozens and dozens of things laying on top of one another that are using the hide attribute.
Oh, okay.
Right. So when you're in this layout now, it's hiding everything that's not a meeting location. And if you go to the location for the dining room, it just tells you this is the dining room because we're not meeting there and no one's sleeping there.
Okay.
But because I only had to work with one layout, I didn't have that concern about forgetting to make a parallel change. And when you're working with things like buttons and scripts, it really does matter.
What about the map, that overview map that you had with all the
the map, I can show you that in layout mode.
Let's
In layout mode, of course, you don't see the object that's in the container field. That's the map. What you see are all of these buttons. And I'm going to give you a really good tip for people who might want to do this kind of work. Notice how in the object palette, I've named all of these buttons. And each one that has a group around it. So for instance, we're looking at the Gellert Rotunda. It's called the number 3 Gellert Rotunda in the parent object, but the actual button underneath it is called Gellert Rotunda. It's a similar name, but not identical, because it won't allow you to name two things that are the same. But what it allowed me to do during development was to realize which one am I actually working on. So if I click on Gellert Rotunda and I right-click on it, I hide all other objects. Now I can focus my attention on just that one.
Wait, I didn't even realize that it could hide all the other objects.
Right.
I forgot that.
You didn't know about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, it is really handy. But when you don't know which one it is, because they're just given these numbers, it's helpful. I used a font in Illustrator that's called Circle Frame. It's a wonderful font that draws numbers with a circle around them. And if it's a 2-digit number, then you use a different keystroke on your keyboard to do it. I've used it for years, and it came in very handy for this.
So why is the photo or the map in a container?
Why not?
Because it's an extra field?
Well, it certainly allowed me during development to replace it from time to time when I had to.
So you're thinking, so you would put, I'm just asking, because people are going to ask the question, and I normally, if someone gave me a map and the map I assume was static because this building's not going to be rebuilt, I would grab it, paste it as an object straight into the layout on the bottom.
Okay. Now, if you did that, you'd probably want to make sure that you're constraining the proportions and you're anchoring it in such a way that if somebody was on a different size device, it would scale proportionally.
Correct.
And then the challenge becomes, how do you make sure that those buttons are moving properly to correspond with their location? So if I could go back in time to examine what my brain was telling me in June, I might have a better answer for you.
No, but but these are these are important considerations, right? Because the world we live in. When Dennis and I started, we had Mac. Well, I don't know when you started. When I started, I had Mac Pluses and LCs, and then 640 by 40 displays, and we had multiple screen sizes back then, Margaret. But we didn't even think about that really. It was just kind of like, oh yeah, the scroll, tough, right? But
one thing that I could do is I could take that same field and put it on the iPhone layout and just use the rotate feature. Now, you could do that with an object on the layout as well. Maybe I just am a control freak about the way I wanted to deal with it.
No, I think that there's, even if someone does it differently, people understanding your concerns and because if you had a concern about it, as you spread it across the screen and the buttons stay, like if you look at number 1 and if you resize it, does the number 1 follow along in that same spot, or does it wander off and it's off target? I didn't think about that, but that's kind of ugly.
One thing that I use very often with my clients is if they're trying to save money, the aspect ratio of an iPad works just as fine in FileMaker Pro.
Yes.
So I only have to make one layout, and it's good for Pro and good for an iPad. The phone, believe it or not, if I were to go to, there's a layout that I have here which lists all the iPhone models and all of their dimensions and all their sizes. Thank goodness I didn't have to use it. But I built it in just in case, because I could never predict what the other team members would insist on.
Yeah, so that's where you'd want to build for the smallest one and then let it scale to fit the larger device.
That's what I didn't build on the very smallest one, which is 320 points.
Okay.
Whatever phone that is was probably not even in production anymore. But my iPhone 13 mini, I love it because it's pocket size, and I've never upgraded it to one of the newer models because I don't like the bigger phones in my pocket.
Yeah, they take a lot of room. So yeah.
So I used that as the basis of it. And fortunately, nobody on the team ever said to me, make some other size layouts for other phones. And I would have had a fight to say, you know what, you do it.
Yeah, it's a lot of work. So what we end up doing with Starting Point is we have instead of what we do is we have a mouse layouts that are designed optimized for smaller mouse, and then we have touch layouts, which are generally, we assume, are still portrait landscape mode windows, but they have larger buttons in there for pads and Windows computers that have touch screens. And
here I'm showing you that we built one little layout with airport directions from San Jose or San Francisco or Oakland. Same thing, except it's not walking, it's driving.
Yeah.
But to and from the 3 airports. Figured it might be helpful to people if they've got the app in their phone when they leave home.
Yeah, this is pretty slick. So this is great. Well, I don't have any questions at the moment.
I wanted to ask a really fast one, and then I'll let you vanish off. You said that you handled a bajillion hide functions. Did you just like suffer through that when you made that one card window with the locations, or did you group it so you only had to do like one set of hides
All
for
right.
5? Okay.
Because I'm falling in love with you, Margaret, I'll show it to you.
You'll show me the suffering? I'm sorry.
All right, so here is the layout, and it's got everything hideable, but there are records. So if I were to go into browse mode and scroll through the records one by one, let me first do a sort, putting them in numerical order by their location number. So the first one in the sort order is the office. And it tells you where the location is, and it tells you what you can do about going there or not going there. John made the rules. The Loyola Parlor number 2 is where the bus notes are being stored and given out. Then comes the breakout room, and then we have the Loyola Parlor where the luggage is being stored, and then we get to the Gellert Rotunda where we were this morning for the intro, and that rotunda is being used for a variety of sessions in chronological order. There's no sub-summary in a portal, so they're just in chronological order by date and time. If I go to the next one, number 5, it's the O'Mara conference room, which also has the same situation.
But you could have, no, you couldn't have. I was going to say you could use a list view, but you can't use a dynamic multi-different destination table list view.
Right. Carrera Hall is one of the places where the priests live, so you can't go there. Number 6 is the dining room, so there's a paragraph of text that would be hidden on other layouts, right? And then there's the Marini Hall, which we could have used for lodging if we had had more people attending. And then we've got number 8 is the chapel. So maybe I could have put a picture of the inside of the chapel. I wasn't here early enough to take such a picture. Mary's room is a little private room adjacent to the chapel where we're going to have our team meetings every morning. And then number 8 is the guest rooms at St. Joseph's Hall. And then I could go through each of them one by one.
But it's interesting, yeah.
And I put this new button on there yesterday for people who might want to walk to the labyrinth, which is way down the hill. If I open up my photos, which I'm not sure if it's synchronized, but I took a picture of this deer that was standing in the labyrinth area yesterday.
Wow. Well, it's interesting, and in the design decisions, I see some interesting design decisions here. I'm not saying I would do all of them, but I think it's educational to think about why you did what you did and what was your decision making.
If you were to talk to Taylor Sharp, which I know you do, he would give me praise that I don't deserve necessarily for my layout work. I did a session for the Dallas group a few years ago all about the tricks and tips that I have developed for working with layouts. And maybe because of my graphic desigin background, it's what I go to automatically. When I first met, can't remember her name now. I should know her name. The gal who came from Adobe who helped create the new design elements in FileMaker version 12.
No, she was a PM there. I remember her name.
She was terrific, and I think she's working for Delta Airlines now.
Yeah, she went to Capital One, then she jumped to Delta.
Right,
so,
right. So. And her input was fantastic. And I remember sitting next to her at a session when who's the fellow who produces the FileMaker themes? and his name escapes me now too. But anyway, he was doing a session and he was talking about gradients and how gradients are more like the natural world.
Is that Petrowski does the themes?
Yes, it was Matt Petrowski.
Okay.
And he was describing how in real life you don't see flat colors anywhere. You always see things in gradients. And then he got to another thing about his layouts where he wanted to make sure that the field had the text centered vertically rather than by default it's always on the left.
Yes.
And or always on the top. And he said, now here's something I always do. And then he showed how he did that. And I gave Heather Winkle was her name.
Heather
I
Winkle,
gave her an elbow. And I said, did you hear what he just said? Why should we always have to do something? Why can't that be something we specify as a developer preference? Now, they did make one change this year, which proves that if we ask hard enough and long enough about developer preferences, we can get them. And it's in FileMaker 2025. What they did was they removed the default that adds newly defined fields to a layout, because you know how horrible that is when one of your clients, let's say, has the ability to put a field on a layout.
So is that totally out of 25 now? You can't.
No, it's not totally out. It's just out as a checked on default. It's there if you want to use
off,
it.
So it's
off by default.
Right. That's another one. Yeah, that's a good
That was a really helpful one. But look how many years it took us to get that.
Yep. David Angel says, thanks. We greatly appreciate it. People are watching this, say thanks. And then, we'll make sure that as Dennis gets this file kicked out, we will give it to everyone. And my thought is take it apart, learn something, make yourself better because of it. So, all right. That's it, everyone. We'll catch you tomorrow. See you.